Cool. Today is the day when finally we get into putting our businesses together. So over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the mindset of our business. We've been talking about good habits, activities, scheduling, time blocking, all the mindset things, the foundational things. We've been talking about putting on our socks, right? You guys are UCLA players. No. You are not even UCLA. You are the 2026 national champion Michigan Wolverines. That's who you are. Arguably one of the greatest statistical teams in the history of NCAA basketball that everyone just witnessed this season, and specifically last night. You are that team. You are Dusty May. You are that team putting on your socks, and you've put on your socks, and we are lacing up our shoes. And now we are starting to actually get into getting onto the court and talking about some strategies. So today we're going to talk about the 1-3-5. And over the next several weeks, we're really going to get into the business planning aspect of real estate. And since we've talked about this from day one, I learned as an engineer how to build a plane by learning how it crashes. The best way to learn how to do something is first to learn how not to do something. Don't do that. Hey, I'm going to go that way. That eliminated half of your bad possibilities, didn't it? Versus if I just told you, okay, Noah, like do it this way. You're like, okay, well, that way could be a number of different things, right? Versus don't do that. Okay, got it. I'm going here, right? And so that's actually how a lot of times, this is how we learn as kids, right? Oh, don't touch that. I'm going to touch that. Oh, it's hot, right? Same thing. We got to learn, but now we're adults. We learn to what people say, hey, that really didn't work for me, right? And by the way, I got to find, you guys didn't tell me, let there be light. Let there be light. Here we go. Now you guys can see me. Let there be light. Here we go. So let's talk about how most businesses fail as it relates to specifically what having a goal is and what having a plan is versus not. So this is what we're going to call the drift. And I love how AI branding helps keep everything really consistent because we have the squeeze and now we have the drift. So this is called the drift, and then the gap, right? And the dig. Everything is going to be 2 words here. The something at Blue Pebble going forward. I guess this is what AI wants our branding to be, so we're going to roll with it. This is what the drift looks like. The drift, this is what working hard with no plan really looks like in real life. And by the way, you're going to see this pattern across everything else that requires a long duration of investment of time before you start seeing results. There are industries and there are jobs where when you do something, you have immediate feedback on how that goes, right? When I was on Wall Street and a client called me and I was a trader, the movies do a pretty good job of this. So let me just explain how this goes. I'm on a trading desk. I'm in front of my computer. I'm minding my own business, managing my book, just trying to avoid getting into trouble. That is literally your entire job as a Wall Street trader, is to not actually make money. Your job is to avoid trouble. You just want to be quiet. You don't want people to call you. You just want to be left alone. And then all of a sudden your light on your phone, because you've got 16 and 32 lights on your phone, that light pops up. You know exactly who that client is. You know it's coming your way. You feel the adrenaline starting to rush because you know it's coming. And then all of a sudden, with 5 minutes before the closing bell and earnings being reported, you get the call, Jared, Anadarko, 100,000 up, June, 100 calls. And I say, Mike, that's insane. They report in 5 minutes. And he says, too bad. It's the top client of the bank. Your managing director runs over. The other one runs over. They're all staring over your phone and say, Jared, what are you going to do? They're offered at 10 cents on the screens for 100. You got to offer 100,000. And what's 100? That's $15 million of premium. I don't know, 25 cents. Click, they hang up on you. And then you get a call back 15 minutes later saying, don't be an a-hole and make me a market next time, right? That's what this is. You get immediate feedback in those types of industries. You know when you did good or bad. Real estate is not one of them. So much of our activity is leading up to the immediate feedback. We don't have the right to earn immediate feedback in terms of sitting with a client and getting a yes or a no, unless we've done months of work leading up to that moment, right? So for most people, it's hard to stick to a plan because it could take months or even years for a lot of people before they're going to see their first movement of success. And this is why the drift happens. If you woke up every day and you phone calls and you had sales conversations with leads and you were getting immediate feedback every day, you knew if you made a phone call this morning, you were going to have a listing appointment this afternoon and you were going to get immediate feedback on whether or not you had a client. It doesn't matter whether or not or how much money you're making because you're already making $15,000 a deal and people still won't make the phone calls every single day. It's about the feedback. It's if you were able to sit down every single day and you knew that like the phone call I made this morning directly led to the appointment I'm going to have this afternoon and the close I'm going to have tonight, it would be a lot easier for you to motivate yourself to make your calls every day. The problem is in real estate, it doesn't work that way. The call you make today could lead to the conversation that someone has at the kitchen table 4 months later, who then could lead to a referral 2 years later when their best friend, when that person's best friend moves to town, and all of a sudden your name got passed around 4 times, and you're sitting there having a consultation with potential buyers moving to Colorado. That's how this works. So without a plan or a real accountability to a schedule and doing it consistently over time, you're going to experience the drift. You're going to get really excited. This is going to be your year. This is going to be how we're going to do it. We're going to work really, really, really for a month or two. It's easy to go to the gym for a month. It's really hard to go to the gym for 4 years. So we're going to really, really hard. And then, in 6 months, we might not see any results yet. And maybe we're not even achieving the goals yet. And then we're going to shut it down. And then, in 9 months, we're going to figure out a new plan. And it's September, October. Oh, and by the way, don't worry about it because no one actually does any work in real estate in October, November, December. So we'll just start working on that in January. And guess what happens? It starts all over again. So not only are you on this mini roller coaster intra-year where you go from having clients and really busy and not lead generating to not having anything and lead generating all the time to having clients and being too busy. Even in your career, you have these annual cycles of try, fail, try, fail, try, fail. This is perfect timing for a conversation we had this week, Noah. It's almost as if you knew what we were going to be talking about this week at Tuesday Coaching, right? And so our whole concept here is to avoid the drift. And it's not just about setting goals, right? It's about the activity too. Because we can say, hey, it would be easy for Michigan to say, hey, we want to win a national championship. And saying that we want to win a national championship is one thing. Winning the national championship is a whole nother ballgame. No pun intended. I'm not that smart. I would have really wished to intend that pun. I did not intend that pun. So it's a whole nother ballgame, right? So I think one of the nice things about a 135 and a GPS and having a business plan is it's not just this is one of the major things that most real estate agents complain about when we talk to them in appointments and recruiting meetings is, I feel like I have all the tools and I have these great goals and I just don't know the how, because the devil is in the how details. It's not the what. We all know we have to market ourselves. We all know we have to manage our money. We all know that we have to provide a customer experience. We all know all the things at a high level we have to do in order to be successful in this industry. We're all solopreneurs at the end of the day, or business owners. We're just microcosms of different things, right? They'll change. They just get bigger and bigger, more money and more problems. Same problems, just more money, more of them, bigger problems, right? You got to do marketing. You got to do accounting. You got to do finance. You got to do procurement. You got to do delivery. Like these are all things that major corporations deal with, and you individually are dealing with them as a solopreneur because you chose real estate as your profession. It is the how we do those things that makes the difference between a successful agent and an unsuccessful agent. Is it not the how that also makes the difference between a successful company and an unsuccessful company? A lot of times, maybe not over the last 15 years because a rising tide lifts all boats. But if we're going to start seeing one of these things, maybe, then you're going to start seeing real differences in operating models. And that's something a lot of people forget. We've had this expansion in our economy in the United States for the last 15 years. That is 16 years. That's an extremely long expansion cycle in the economy. So it's been easy. I know you guys don't feel that way since 2023, but it's been easy for everyone else but us to make money in this economy over the last 15 years. When it starts to be hard is when you're going to see the real differences in operating models. So we need to make sure that you have an operating model that can withstand bumps. And we'll get to that in a second. So at a high level, this is how 135 is going to be structured. This is your business GPS. GPS stands for, I believe, goals, priorities, skills, or individual things that we're doing. One big goal or your 3 priorities, the S being skills or activities, right? What are the 5 things we're going to do underneath? And so when we structure our business plan, we're going to have always one wildly important goal. I'm going to close an insane number of transactions. And by the way, we're going to do that. I did not demonstrate a good goal. Let me demonstrate a good goal for you. I'm going to sign 24 clients by the end of 2026. That is a quantifiable goal. We can measure it. I know how many clients I've signed. It's a leading indicator. We're going to get into that in a second. I have control over client signing. I don't have control over closings. And that's a key thing we need to remember before we kind of go through this process is you don't have control over when a client closes. You have control over how many clients you sign because that's dependent on your activity. And at the end of the day, you can't force a client to sign on the dotted line. You can't say, hey, Noah, this is the perfect house for you. We're just going to buy it. You could have clients who totally waste your time. You have clients that close right away. What we control is getting clients signed. So we're going to have one giant goal. You need a quantifiable goal. I want to sign 24 clients. It needs to be measurable in a certain period of time by the end of 2026. Preferably a future time, i.e. the time did not already happen, like 2025. We want to be in the future. This is future goals. I was making fun of myself there. Jen did not laugh as hard on the follow-up joke. I'll take that one from the routine. That one's off the set list going forward. All right. And then once you have the big goal, you have 3 priorities. So I call this the diversification benefit of business planning, in that if we just have one goal and one strategy, what happens when that strategy doesn't work? If we only have one strategy to achieve our goal, and we put all of our eggs in one basket, that is either going to work out really, really well or really bad. As business owners, do we want to build our lives? The point of our business is to fund our lives, right? As business owners, do we want our lives to have that much uncertainty when we're planning for our families and our retirements and our vacation? Do we want to YOLO every single time? We all have a friend that does that, by the way. Do we want to be that friend? We all know someone that does that. We all know it. Jen's laughing because she's even thinking about that person. We all know that person. We don't want to be that person. So the way we prevent being that person is by we diversify. If you talk to any good financial advisor, any good financial planner, this is a good life lesson outside of real estate. You don't want to put all your money in one stock. You want a portfolio of stocks. And not only do you want a portfolio of stocks, you want a portfolio of assets. Stocks are just one asset class. You have bonds, you have commodities, you have currencies, you have annuities, you have other investment structures, you have private equity, you have real estate. You've got all sorts. You want your money spread out across as many different things because the wealth is built by saving, right? And by mitigating risk, not by maximizing reward every time. Business is the same way. A solid business foundation is built on mitigating risk and making good risk reward decisions, not on YOLO every single year, because then we run into that same issue. We work really hard for something for 6 months, it may or may not work. If it doesn't work, then we give up for basically 6 months, start all over again. And not only are we going to have 3 different areas or strategies of our portfolio, right? We're going to have priorities, 3 different priorities, 1 goal, 3 priorities. We're going to have 5 skills, strategies, activities underneath to help us achieve that 1 priority. So if we're thinking about our business, and we'll start applying it to the standard Blue Pebble business plan right here, priority 1 might be our sphere. So when we talk about where is our business coming from, most people get most of their business from people they already know, like, and trust, who already know, like, and trust them. Now, it's okay if you're not that agent. Some agents hate prospecting their sphere, and that's fine. You don't have to prospect your sphere. Number 1, you do need a number 1 lead source, though. And if you don't prospect your sphere, and let's say your cold outreach is your first priority, you still need to find 2 other ways of generating business. It doesn't have to involve cold calling your friends. That's not a requirement. You just got to find 2 other ways of getting business. So for us at Blue Pebble, we teach a standard plan that has 3 priorities across your sphere. Cold outreach, but cold in the sense that you haven't met them. It doesn't have to be a cold call. You just have to be interacting with people you've never met yet. Because we're going to get most of our business from our sphere, which are people that we've met and know. If we want to build that, the only way to build that is by growing that number. How do we grow that number? If you want to grow the number of people you know, what do you have to, if you figure this out without me, let me know. If you want to grow the number of people that you know, you at a minimum have to interact with people you don't know. I'm not saying meet them. I'm saying you have to interact with them. You want to post on social media 1,000 times a day? That's interacting with people you've never met before. You want to go to open houses? Fine. You want to call expireds? Fine. These are all interacting with people you've never met before. You have to do it. And I would say there's a third priority where you should be leaning into your edge or your big advantage. We all bring something to the table. Now, if you would have asked pissed off, depressed, angry Jared in his 20s, pessimistic Jared, he might not have been as nice in saying that about everyone. I think age and wisdom has taught me that everyone does bring something to the table. The question is what and whether or not they're willing to let it shine. So, I would argue we all have something that makes us unique. And maybe, if even in your least, not worse, but even in your least self-inspired, self-confident moments, if you really can't think of anything that separates you, think about a mix of things that don't separate you. Think about all the things you like to do and then put them all together, because the combination of all those things is still going to be something that will likely make you very unique. So think about what your advantage is. Maybe you know your advantage. Maybe you know your community. Maybe you know your tribe. You know your people, where you can lean into and separate yourself from other real estate people. That's going to be your edge. For me, it was business-to-business networking. For Noah, it might be social media. It might be rugby club. Or sorry, not club. Rugby. I don't want to downplay the importance.
You got it right. You got it right.
I don't want a bunch of angry rugby guys trying to track me down because I call it a club. And it's not team or whatever, right? Your rugby team. It could be that. I don't know maybe it's hot shots. Maybe it's other things you're doing. There's a connection that you can make between your real estate platform that you're building on your sphere and your cold side and something you're already doing or bring to the table that you can do. Jen, you've talked about this in terms of your community for single moms and helping out single parents. So that's your edge. You're already leaning into that. So we just got to figure out your third thing, and that's going to be your edge. And then within each of these 3 priorities, we're going to come up with 5 things we're going to do consistently to ensure that we're successful in achieving that priority. And I know a lot of you have gone through this process with me before. This is your second, maybe even third time going through a GPS with me. What I'm just going to tell you is that look back on your GPS. If you're not where you wanted to be a year ago and you've done this session with me, look back on your GPS that you did a year ago. Pull up that GPS, give it a look before you do it again, and ask yourself whether or not you did that GPS. And if you didn't, ask yourself why you didn't. Was it consistency? Was it scheduling? Was it time blocking? Was it literally just too much stuff on the piece of paper? What was it? Because if you didn't achieve the goals and you didn't do the GPS, you can't say the business plan didn't work, right? So let's at least take that opportunity right now. If we've gone through this, let's evaluate what happened last year so that we can jump into building a better business plan for ourselves this year. What's up, Nate?
Well, yeah, all of that's great. So like last year when we did GPS, for me, I really focused on Sphere. I really focused on cold calls, all of that fun stuff. But it just felt like my Sphere was just beat up, right? It was just beat up. They were getting it from me and everybody else, every other agent that they've ever come into contact with. And so it was disheartening, to say the least. It sucked. Cold outreach. I was doing cold calls with all of those guys too. And it's just, what sucks about a lot of this stuff is it's just a massive amount of burnout, especially after trying these things. And I did all of these things straight through 6 months. And the hard part is it's hard to find new activities to take over those old activities that just didn't work after 6 months, right? So that was the chore. And so like this year, I talked with you about one of them, the 28-day sold thing. Hermosi style, I'm really leaning into that. And as far as like, I'm really leaning into the edge. I've got other Hermosi stuff, like another Grand Slam that includes Hot Shot Pros, right? Hey, we're going to give you $2,000 worth of marketing. All we ask is you give us first right. You can refuse us, first right or refusal kind of thing. We just want to have that conversation when you do list. We're giving you all of this crap, right? But it's hard, right? So that's the problem that I'm finding with this as you're going through this. What do I put in those boxes at this point?
Great.
Because we failed on so many other levels last year doing this.
Yeah, and that's a great thing. We just got to get creative here, right? And Noah and I were talking about this with Cooper yesterday. I mean, if the old isn't working, right, then we need to figure out a different way to achieve the same means through different media in plural mediums, not only social or internet electronic media kind of thing. So here's what I would say. There is nothing more powerful than like having a face-to-face, person-to-person connection is the one thing we have to build with our people. So as salespeople, the only thing we're ever going to have, the computers will not be able, if computers can ever do the following, then we're totally effed. If they can ever replace the human connection and empathy that we share with other individuals and not just a human connection, then like we're effed as a human race, especially as salespeople, right? But if you look at where AI companies have documented research in terms of where AI disruption can lead to, it's only about half or 75% of sales because there has to be a component for that human-to-human connection. And so, Nate, all I'm saying is like maybe 10 sphere calls a day doesn't work anymore because maybe your sphere, or maybe for you, and some spheres are going to have more real estate agents in their spheres than others, just based on the sphere and the nature of the beast and that kind of thing. So like, maybe for an agent who has, let's say, 200 or 300 people in town, and these people are very supportive of them, and there aren't real estate agents in their network, and making 10 or 50, 5 or 10 phone calls a day and just saying, hey, what's up? Do you know anyone? Maybe that's still that's a very easy way to see if you can get business that way. For someone that's not, we just got to get creative. So like, I don't know, how do you get, like, what are some things that we could do instead of taking all that time, let's say 2 hours a day to make that 10 contacts, because it's about how long it takes to make a solid 2 hour, say 2 hours to make 10 to 12 contacts within our sphere if we're really going to be calling and having good conversations and building good stuff like that. So instead of spending 2 hours to make all those contacts that are proven to be unfruitful, are there ways that we might only be able to take like maybe half an hour or 2 hours a week to get 5 or 10 people in a room at one time to build a connection? Or maybe you do it like once a week. So like maybe I don't think you're a golfer, Nate, but like maybe if you're a golfer, maybe you're golfing in, twice a weekend, and you're now just coordinating because it's golf season coming up, 2 foursomes, a foursome on Saturday, a foursome on Sunday, and you're making 6 contacts over the weekend right there, just while you're playing golf. I would argue that's a day worth of prospecting you just did on the golf course while you're having a few beers with your friends. And so what are some other things that we can do? What are some other community events? What are other ways that we can engage with people? Like, what are other excuses that we can have to get people to pick up the phone and engage with us? Running, it could be simple tricks like running coupons. So maybe not for hot shots because people know you with hot shots and they might view it as self-serving if you combine Blue Pebble and hot shots and what you're doing, but like, maybe it's vendors, like call around right now and say, hey, I just want to let you know I'm not calling for anything. I'm calling because I'm working with this HVAC guy. He's my favorite air conditioning dude. Before the summer hits, it's going to be a hot one. Here's my AC guy. It's free this, or how's it going? Nate, when your people are calling your sphere, they're not offering that.
It's true. They're
just saying, hey, Johnny, who do you know looking to buy or sell real estate? And they might get set 6 times, and that's why they're frustrated and be like, I don't know anyone, even though they do, because like, I don't, whatever. We just got to open them up. And so I think it's like, let's get creative not only in maybe finding other activities via golf or organized things we can do, let's just get creative in ways that we can approach these conversations to build better relationships and try and crack the nut, is all I'm trying to say. Like, we still got to get there. Like, this is the problem, though, right? And I hear your frustration because, dude, I'm also hearing it from every other agent we're talking to outside of Blue Pebble, right? Everyone, it's like, dude, it does work. It's just you got to separate. You can't be like everybody. If you do the same things like everyone else, you're going to get the results that everyone else gets. Do it like, how about this? Michael Jordan, maybe this word just came to me in basketball. Since we're on a basketball theme today. If we're playing basketball, don't 5-year-olds dribble the ball just like a 16-year-old and an NBA? Like, don't they all have to dribble the basketball? And maybe not 5-year-olds, maybe they can't shoot a 3-pointer, but like, what makes a 3-pointer that a 10-year-old maybe shoots and maybe can get to the rim is the same 3-point shot effectively, right? Then the 16-year-old is the same as like an NBA player, right? The difference is in the how. It all goes back to the how. How you approach shooting that basketball as a pro is totally different than how you approach shooting it as a, and it's the work that goes into that, right? And so I think for us, we are going to do the same things as every other real estate agent. We have to make contacts. You have to make contacts. There's no way for you to avoid that. You have to do it. If you don't do it, no one's ever going to call you. You have to market yourself.
Yeah.
And so we just got to think of creative ways to then market yourself and make those contacts. And by the way, you're trying to figure out in priority 3 with like an online automated thing, which is totally cool. And that should be a third thing. And then also maybe, Nate, as you get more successful at that, maybe your resources pile from priority 1 or 2 into priority 3, right? Like, that's what Noah's doing right now. If I can, like, Noah's in the process of moving. Like, his sphere stuff wasn't working at all, but we're getting some luck with open houses. So like, we're kind of pivoting from as big of a focus on sphere into open houses because they've kind of cracked some code on that. And you're able to make that too. So let's break here if you don't mind. We'll pick up the rest of this on Friday. And Nate, this is a really important thing because this is the stuff that this is the foundation of what we're doing every single day. So when we show up, we put ourselves in the best position of success. So if we need to take an extra session or two to brainstorm or deal with these problems, talk about a mastermind, do whatever. I think what you're saying is what a lot of people are saying and are feeling and might not be saying as vocally as you are. So like, let's take some real time to solve these problems as a brokerage because we still got to do the thing.
I really think that it's critical, and this is the critical point, right, in a lot of people's career. This is really where they quit or go forward. And so, it's really important. I always think of that analogy of you don't want to be just the caramel. You want to be the salt and the caramel.
Right.
So, but with that analogy, it's like, what does that freaking mean? We all sell homes. We all have to abide by the same rules, but what makes me so freaking special, right? And so that's the chore that we need to rise above. It's not really something we need to overcome in public. It's something I think we need to overcome in here. And so it's a tough one.
And it could be as simple as consistency.
Right.
Because, dude, you've been around this industry a long time. And so, like, when I started 10 years ago, social media was a thing, but it wasn't like you saw influencers crushing it like you kind of do today on social media and leads and this whole whatever. But even back then, 10 years ago, you didn't have people putting in the effort, making phone calls, doing connections. They said they did, but you didn't when you actually tracked their numbers, right? Now you have something that could be even more passive, that is even more shiny object-y out there, that even takes that even takes some of the pressure off of this part that most people don't want to do in the first place. And they can lean into this. So this is getting touched even probably worse than like it has been. So even though it might not feel like it, sometimes it's just a consistency of like, wow, Noah, you called me 4 times in a year and you weren't a pushy asshole at all for those 4 times. I'm actually thinking about selling my house. When can you come over?
Noah.
Good job. So, all right. Well, hey,
Awesome.
we've got some big announcements tomorrow. So come by to the team meeting if you can make it. And if you can't, Jen or whatever, if your schedule doesn't allow, let's catch up about it a little bit later. And I think that's pretty much it. So have a good one, guys. We'll pick up the rest of this on Friday.
All right. Thanks, man.
See ya. Thank you.